Okay, there. Great. Hello, and I just said I wish we were in person. I miss you in person, and yeah, just super grateful that you're here. We might have people coming in and out to join the Revolucion. And I'm especially excited that you said yes to coming today because you are my organization role model. And I just want to hear more in depth about just your systems, your strategies, and yeah, tell me everything.
Well, thanks. First of all, I'm really happy to be here and to be in conversation with everyone. And that is to me the highest compliment. I would rather have someone say they see me as very organized than see me as brilliant, as beautiful as anything else. Like I take organization very seriously, and I'm always looking for new strategies, new techniques to be more efficient and keep myself together. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with maybe some of your go-tos, like systems or actual planners.
Mhm. Okay, well, I have the planner of planners. It's so amazing. It's called an uncalendar, and these are my own stickers that I put on them. Hello.
Hi, Yadali.
It's called an uncalendar, and I have used this since probably 2007 when I was at a meeting and I saw someone using this, and it's I just saw her across the table and she had like all these bright boxes and looked interesting. I was like, what is that? And she told me, oh, it's this planner that I've used for many years. And ever since then, it's been my go-to. And sometimes I will try other planners and I always regret betraying my true love. Like, this is the one that is it for me. So I'll show you what it has. First of all, it's blank, so you can start it at any time. You don't have to wait for a new, January of whatever year or August of an academic year planner. I like it because it's got the weeks laid out like this, Monday through Friday, and then the weekends have smaller spaces, which work for me because there's usually less going on. I don't have many meetings on the weekends. And I like this because you could see each day is divided into like 3 sections. And at the beginning of this planner, they give you a lot of different ideas for how to use it. You could, for example, use this for morning, afternoon, evening, which is what I do. You could use it for school, for work, for home. If you have children, right, you could do your schedule, one of your kids, another one of your kids. You can adapt it to whatever is going on in your life. And then it's got these other just boxes all over the place, and a big note-taking page that you just use in whatever ways makes sense for you. And so that's the thing. Like when I started using this calendar, it's before I was a professor, and I found ways that it kept me organized. When I was an assistant professor, having office hours and whatnot, like there was a way that I divided the boxes and used it for that. And as a department chair, I changed up like how I used each box, so it suited me then. And now in my current role in the provost office, the same thing. Like I'm able to really kind of target how I use each of these spaces very strategically. And I just like it because you can doodle, you can do whatever, right? Some weeks get messy. I write whatever. And this is a fun example. I often write down quotes that I like, that people say to me during the week that I just want to remember, something really interesting that they said.
And you still keep a paper calendar even though you're online?
Yeah, so this is where things start to get a little more complicated. I in my new role, there's a staff member who's really awesome who helps to manage my calendar because I get a lot of requests for meetings and have a lot going on. So I use Google Calendar because that's the way that people can schedule things with me. But what I do is every Sunday night, and this is something that I learned from someone named Carrie Ann Rockamore. She's got this system called the Sunday meeting, where every Sunday night I sit down and look at my week ahead. And so I look at my Google Calendar and map on to here what I have going on when. I color code it just because it's fun to use colored pencils. And then I like to visually see how I'm using my time. So like, oh, this week is going to have a lot of X type of meetings, or the coming week is going to be really busy in terms of XYZ. So it just helps me. I like having the Google Calendar because then I get reminders about upcoming meetings so that I'm never late. I'm on top of those. But what I do with this Sunday planning is map out my days. I map out all the things that I have to do. And then just kind of get clarified for the week on what am I going to focus on each day. Because this is the last thing I'll say, so I don't like go on and on about this, but it's really that when you have a lot that is on your mind, you're juggling things across many classes, or your work responsibilities, stuff you have going on at home and your personal life. I don't know about you, but when my days get super packed and things are piling up, I have a hard time falling asleep because my mind is running, thinking of like, oh, I got to send that email. And oh, today I forgot to call back so-and-so. I better do that in the morning, right? And it's hard to let go of your day. And so what the Sunday planning lets me do is map out the things that I have to get done in times when they can get done, so that I don't have to be overwhelmed by everything I want to accomplish over the course of the week. I can just say, today is Wednesday. I'm just focusing on my Wednesday things. And if I check these off, like my plan is moving according to schedule, like it's very reassuring to know, like, I don't have to do all of this stuff today. I've got it mapped out across the week, and everything that's important to me is going to get done. And the last thing I'll say is that this calendar also has months, which are really big, and there's an extra column, which I always liked. Like when I was a professor, I would put in reminders to myself, like, oh, put in, you got to distribute this assignment for the following week, or like grade the tests here so that I could return them here. And then it's got even more note pages in the back. So it's just has a lot of writing room, adaptable, fun. And my last little tip about this is, some planners have a little corner that you tear off so that you can very quickly navigate to this week. So I cut off the corner of every week so that I just with just using my thumb, I'm like, oh, here I am on this week.
I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like you should have my 10% link in the chat. You're 10% off. Yareli and Jennifer, welcome. I just asked Magdalena or Dr. Barrera to talk more about just her system. Do you have questions, or maybe what's your system?
Yeah.
I just bought a new planner, but I had a similar planner like yours.
Uh-huh.
I thought buying a new planner would help me get my life together.
Yeah, I know that. What'd you get?
I got this planner. It's a smaller planner than the one I used to have, and it's just like you go day by day. And the other one that I used to have, it was a weekly planner, but it was from like, it had like the times.
Yeah.
And I like that, similar to Dr. Barrera's, because you do get to plan like every single move.
Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful too.
Yeah, this is what I always used to tell students, is that when I think about the next week, in my mind, it looks like this, like all the time is available, right? So if someone says, hey, can you help me with XYZ? And in my mind, it's like, I'm thinking, oh yeah, like I got plenty of time. But that's the thing, like I need to map out what my week is actually looking like, because then it's like, oh, actually, I only have 1 hour here to do this. And so can I really make that commitment, right? To me, I really need to visualize my days, and the hours help me do that. But, the thing is that there's so many calendars and planners out there. It's finding the one, testing out a bunch, finding the one that works for you, and then just making that your system, right?
So true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Jennifer just said that she uses Google Planner, but it's hard to keep up. And that's what I'm finding is I have to make sure I have it up here and I have it up here. And, just even the Sunday meetings stuff does not fit. I mean, they use a different term, and Carrie Ann Rockmore uses the shit don't fit, which is true, right? You put too many things on your calendar and you can't get it all in.
Yeah.
What I also know about Dr. Barrera is you are a pen person. And I don't know, do you color code? Do you?
I first of all, I've got this is my pen. It's like when you were in grade school and it's got the different, colors that you can, push down. I like it just because it's like you're taking notes and then I'm taking notes in black ink and then all of a sudden I could switch to the red and then like highlight something critical. So I like it's got the pencil on there too and the little eraser. Yeah, this is my current pen, but I also got, these are my other favorites. It's a Energel 0.35 millimeter needle point pen. I get them in all the different colors that they make them in. This particular thickness, they only have 3 colors, the blue, the black, and the red. But I like real thin pen, 0.35, 0.38, that's my sweet spot. Some pens are like 1.0 millimeter, like that's too thick for me. I've got like a particular pen size that I like.
Now you have me looking. Are you a pen person too, Yeti?
Not as much. I really enjoy buying pens and having, actually, I guess I kind of am. I do enjoy having a lot of different colors, but that pen is really convenient because it has a lot of different inks.
Yes, and okay, maybe I shouldn't, we'll see, I can't share my screen, but
why not?
I don't know, the host disabled it.
Now I have the power.
Okay, so maybe it's not a good idea to share, but if you want to get on the pen and special paper products journey with any of us, jetpens.com is the place to be. They have so many fun planners, pens, pencils, office supplies, washi tape. Just like if you're into art, they have all kinds of cool tools and supplies. And this is a good place to just indulge. Like if you click on pens, look at all the different types of pens you can search by. You can look at the different thicknesses. It's a dangerous site because it's so fun to explore and see what kinds of stuff they have. If you're like me, a big stationery pen and paper nerd.
I fell in love with the Frixion Pilot. They're the erasable ones, and I'm addicted. So yeah, partially because I get so happy when I get to, meetings are canceled sometimes. You're like, you can delete it, you don't have to white it out. So what about like your desk and like how you set yourself up for work sessions?
Well, I'm a person who can't stand any clutter. So when I get too many things cluttered up, I get very stressed out and I get less done. So what I've got here, let's see if I could show you my current desk situation. Okay, I've got my planner right beside me. I've got a little tray that's got some Post-its, my pens, hand cream, gum, paperweight. I've got my lipstick so that right before a Zoom, I can make sure that I'm looking as good as I want to. And that's really all I have aside from like my mouse, and otherwise it's pretty plain because I like to have just the thing that I'm working on as I'm working on it. Yeah.
And if I can, you also, so the tray thing is a good idea because I just realized that's something that you could just pick up and take anywhere all over the house. So like if you don't have a dedicated space, you could make yourself like a little basket of things that you want.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was a gift from one of my colleagues. I also have this very critical stamp that says WTF, which is very convenient nowadays. When something crazy is happening, then I stamp that in my planner just to record that particular moment of what is happening.
Yeah, or just resist the urge to put it on your forehead during a meeting.
Yes, or to stamp it on someone's face when they're talking to you at a Zoom meeting and talking tonterías, then you want to be like, oh, what are you doing?
Yes, I just do that by covering their face with the cello. Okay, and then maybe my final question, I have so many questions for you, but you also have a great wall system with, and I just remember it from your office, if you could share a little bit more about.
Yeah, so, okay, everyone's like, okay, great, what's this system? It looks like a whiteboard, big deal. Okay, no, it's something special called a Kanban board, Kanban. You could look it up, there's a lot of examples. The basic idea of a Kanban board is that at its most essential, it's a board or it could even be a piece of paper if you want, that's divided into 3 sections. There is to do, there's the doing column, and then there's done. And the idea is that you write out all your to-dos, say on Post-its, this is what I do. You put each separate task on its own Post-it and then put it in the to-do column. And then you pick a maximum of 3 that you are working on, and those go in to do, because the idea is we can't really effectively multitask. Like, you can only focus on a certain number of things at a time. So then once one of those doing things is completed, you move it to the done column, and then now there's space for you to move over a new Post-it from the to-do list and into the doing. It's like, okay, now I have time and energy to focus on this. So let me see, the one that's got, how can I point them? This section here, these are my to-dos. You see my 3 to-do in the middle, and all of those are the done ones. And when I first put up this board, I did it because I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed by the number of projects I had going on. So everything was in to do. And it's so gratifying to like see the Post-its that are moving over to done. And it's like, okay, I am getting stuff done. Things are moving through the pipeline. It's like moving stuff along, feels good. It's something small, but it's just visually, again, like you wouldn't think peeling off a Post-it and moving it to another made up column is like that satisfying, but it feels really good. It's like, hey, I completed this project, you know, like we get down on ourselves, I think, always focusing on the stuff we have yet to do. And we don't pat ourselves on the back enough for the things that we are getting done, especially during this time of being in a worldwide pandemic, of incredible economic anxiety for our families and our communities, like so much going on. The fact that we're able to do anything, the fact that you even read something for class, like that's a small miracle in and of itself and deserves to be rewarded and recognized.
So true. And I just keep thinking how even class assignments could be broken down. I wish I had that system as an undergrad, you know, just you get so overwhelmed by syllabi, right? I mean, he's like, yes.
Yeah, or the worst feeling is turning the page in your planner and realizing some major assignment is due, that it hasn't even been on your radar, right? That's a real panic attack. So that's the thing about having a planner. It's like, how do you, once you get your syllabi for the semester, like to sit down and plug in all your major deadlines and then do your backwards planning so that you're not caught off guard, right? So that weeks ahead, you're like, hey, a month from now, that big essay is due. I better make an appointment at office hours to talk about, you know, my approach that I want to take. I'm going to talk about it with the professor, or I better have a draft by this date, or at least have some ideas down on paper so that I'm not caught by surprise and can turn something in that I feel good about. Again, that's something I never did as an undergrad and wish I had, because it would have made my experiences both in my bachelor's and in my PhD program a lot less stressful, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, that reminds me too, one of the things I just started doing, just because everything's so hectic, we're online, is scheduling in downtime. So ahead of time. So I'll go now through like a month from now and just look and say, is there an afternoon or a morning where I can just either carve out no Zoom, so it's my work time, or you know, like maybe I go for a walk. But if I find that if I don't do that, then I just keep scheduling and scheduling and scheduling and scheduling, and it's like it's incessant.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your strategy, Yareli? And Jennifer too, if you are open.
I think I just go, well, I use my planner. I plan weekly. I also plan like on Sundays, but I tend to like fall back on assignments that I think I have enough time to do, but I don't, which I like the board idea to break out big assignments. But I usually just do a to-do list on my phone and just go off that. It's very specific. And that's what I've been doing currently.
How about you, Jennifer? I don't know if you can unmute. I'll give you an out in case you can't. You also do lists. I love it. Oh yeah, to-do list. I don't have my paper here. Yes, I have. Yes, I have too many to-do lists. I think that's, I think I need to go back to the Kanban system or try it, not go back to it, but definitely try it.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up and I'm not having much success logging in. If you're not a paper person or you don't have space and don't want to get a small whiteboard for home and maybe you don't have like your own kind of wall space, you're living with roommates or just, it's hard to carve out like a little office space for yourself. There's a software called Trello, Trello, that where you can do something similar. And I'm trying to pull up an image of it. It's a free software and it's basically setting up similar kinds of columns where you can move specific projects through like to do, doing, done in this case, or if you have assignments, you can add even more of the stages, like here's my outline stage, here's generating the first draft, here's revising it, and you can move each, like the introduction to my paper is like, now in the draft form, now it's in the revising column, now it's done. Like you could just visually move pieces of your projects through the system.
And it's a free system?
Yeah, and I have an account. I don't know why I can't pull it up, but I'll show a screenshot. I just was trying to Google it to see if I wasn't having any luck logging in, but this is what it can look like. So see, here's a Kanban board on Trello. So you can, each one of these is its own little, it's like a Post-it that then you can drag and move over to the next column that you set up.
I love that. That's a great idea. It's sort of like there's another one called Asana.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so see, this is even showing how you can just like move things over in this little, this image here. Sorry, I can't like make it any bigger, so.
What do you do when procrastination hits? Are you not a procrastinator?
Big time. I'm a professional procrastinator.
Okay, I'm like organized and no procrastination?
Well, I don't know. That's tough. I've always struggled with that, to be real. Hey, more smiley folks. Good to see you.
Yesenia.
Hello, good to see you, beautiful mujeres. Hi, Areli.
Hello.
That's the voice and the energy that I miss in person so much.
And it's Wednesday.
Oh my God, I miss y'all too so much. How's everything been?
Good, Yesenia, you are like instant sunshine.
Oh, thank you. See, this is why I came here today. And I brought my mentee, Yasmin.
Hi, Yasmin.
Hello.
We're talking organization, we're talking planners, we're talking how we stay on top of things. And now we just turn to procrastination and being real. That's a real issue. Sometimes I find myself procrastinating just, to be honest, sometimes with self-doubt, just thinking, like worrying about how, especially say with a piece of writing, right? Like, are people going to think this makes sense? Are people going to dismiss what I'm saying? Is this, I don't know, as when I'm writing things, this has happened to me ever since I was an undergrad. I have moments of typing and feeling like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is going to be an A paper. And then the very next moment feeling like, what am I talking about? This doesn't make any sense. And the professor is going to laugh in my face when I turn this in, right? It's a roller coaster of emotions because we're oftentimes filled with a lot of self-doubt about writing. And then for me, that often shows up as procrastination because it's a fear of not doing well on that assignment or on not having it be as perfect as I dreamed it could be, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I definitely think that we could at least get our ideas down and then organize them and determine whether or not we feel like it's something that we could write more about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to share with you this. I recently read this book that I recommend. It's by Tara Moore. It's called Playing Big: Practical Wisdom for Women Who Want to Speak Up, Create, and Lead. And part of what she says here that relates to like fear of writing or fear of judgment, think about how many times that we often hold ourselves back. Sometimes in class, we have something that we really want to say or that we're excited to share, but we start getting in our own minds like, oh, but am I going to sound stupid when I say it? Or are people going to think I'm weird if I put this idea out there? Or what if the professor says it's wrong, what I want to say? So that's in class. It could be in our writing. You have to do a presentation and you start getting worried about like, oh, what if they don't like it? And so part of what this author suggests is that sometimes we fear feedback because we take it as a critique of us as a person, which it's not. That feedback doesn't tell you anything about you. It tells you more about the person giving the feedback. And so ultimately, feedback is really helpful because it helps you learn whether or not you reached your target audience. So say in giving that presentation, if you get some feedback that's you know, that you have some work to do on it, it's like you should welcome that because it's like, okay, well, I have an idea that I'm really excited about. I want to get other people fired up. And if I'm not really quite connecting with them, okay, what can I change up about my approach? Like, how can I like get them on board with this idea? Or the same thing with your writing. Okay, like my professor wasn't too crazy about how I organized my argument. I didn't reach my intended audience. What do I need to do to change it up so that I can write more effectively and really make my argument more powerful and clearer to the person who's reading this paper, right? So it's not about you. It's not that you're terrible and should give up on life and don't have a future, you know, in higher ed per se, but it's just about, okay, what do I need to learn so that I can communicate more effectively with whoever it is that I'm trying to reach? And I really love that idea because it takes that feedback and critique and the fear away from ourselves. It's not about my self-worth. It's about, hey, well, I'm just learning new skills. I'm practicing all the time and I have room to grow, and that's okay because everyone does. And I wish someone had told me that a long time ago because it's like, it took me many years of struggle with writing and trying, you know, like trying to move forward in my career, which feels a lot higher stakes. It would have been helpful to have these ideas planted in me when I was a student and still could like practice them early on. Now, I'm glad I know it now, but I want other people to know like, hey, this is a good way to think about it.
I love that. It also reminds me of how when you do get bad feedback or hard feedback, or hurtful feedback, that it's less about you, right? I mean, it's along those same lines. It's less about you and more about them and however they're feeling about it. So this is really, yeah, absolutely. What is, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was sorry, Rebecca. I was just going to say that it reminds me of a conversation that I was just having yesterday with some colleagues. I had asked them, we were starting off a meeting and I had a getting to know you question of what's something that a professor or a mentor told you in the past that really made a difference for you at a critical moment. And people were sharing some really interesting stories. And the story that I shared was about when I was an undergraduate. I was very close to a Latina staff member who worked in the admissions office, who was the advisor for our Latinx student group that we had. And she was someone I really respected. You know, she was one of the few Latinas that I knew who had finished her bachelor's and was in a professional role in higher ed. And so we had worked together, the group, and she had helped us develop it was like a high school welcome day for Latinx high school students to our college. And we went out partying the night before, and so then rolled up to the event really late, which we didn't think at the time was a big deal. Cindy was not having it and put the smackdown on us, rightly so. She was like, you all are looking unprofessional. You organized this event. You need to be there on time. And we were all like, oh man, like Cindy's mad at us. Like this is serious, right? And I just appreciate her really telling it to us straight because it's an example of some advice that I got not too long ago. I heard a Latina college president saying that for us to learn and to grow, we need to find mentors. And these mentors need to be people who love us and love us hard, she said. And the idea is that you need to find mentors and supporters who give you positive feedback when it's needed and tell you, hey, these are things that you are doing really well and where you're really strong. But those people have to respect you enough to also love you hard. That is to say, give you tough love feedback when you need it. And to kind of say, look, I know you thought that you were doing well at this, but you actually need to rethink this practice, or this is not the way to present yourself, or whatever it may be, right? that sometimes we want to find in mentors, we want to get only positive feedback, but oftentimes we need guidance to say, hey, this is how you're going to take it to the next level, is if you think about yourself in this or that way, or push yourself to do this. And sometimes it's not always easy to hear. It's not easy for them to say, but they have to respect us enough to say it. And so I love that, right? And the way to remember that is to find people who love you and who love you hard. So they give you the positive feedback, and they give you some real talk too when there's areas where you need to grow and work on.
Oh, that's so good. That's a great distinction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Barrera, because I feel like oftentimes I could definitely relate to all that you say, and I'm glad that you're sharing this with us, because even like I know sometimes when I guess like listening to feedback or taking in feedback, it really can be like sometimes we try to avoid it, right? Because or at least for me, like I do sometimes even catch myself like not looking at the comments in like my submission, or like trying to avoid like I guess the peer reviews, because I'm fearing that kind of like, I guess critic, how to explain it, like not judgment, but like in my head it's kind of like judgment. I take it sometimes as judgment, right? So then I get like scared of seeing things that I don't feel like or that just kind of like are contrary to what I believe. So then I try to avoid it, right? However, I feel like that's very real when we do, it's about how you approach it. And so it oftentimes is to like help us. It doesn't necessarily like define who we are. It is very much like on who gave it to us, but it gives a different perspective where we can grow from it, right? So when it is like trying to either like shift our message or kind of make it clear for it to be more powerful, but in a sense it's overall to grow, to be better. And I feel like when it comes to like when bringing that to like relationships and like even with mentorships, that's so true. Like even as a mentee and a mentor, like how as a mentor to like, well, first as a mentee, how to take that in and like that tough love from that mentor. Then as a mentor, how to give that tough love. So I feel like that's something that I might even like interested in asking Dr. Burciaga or you, Barrera, or anyone else in the call who like has had kind of that experience where you've had to be that kind of mentor, like friend, where you have to give that tough love. So how
Yeah,
do I approach that?
when you first brought that up, Dr. Barrera, the first thing I thought of was one of the students that I worked with. And every time I would see her, she would always say, hi, sorry. And like kind of like physically scrunch down and always say sorry, and like very low voice. And I think by the second time we met, I just, I sat down with her and I just said, I'm going to share something that's really hard for me to share. And I want to say this out of complete respect and, con cariño. When you do that, you're pulling in your power, right? And I think that you have powerful ideas, and the way that you write is really powerful. Your topics that you're working on are amazing, and don't diminish what you can contribute with your physical, and it was hard. I think it was hard for her to hear. It was hard for me to say, but I noticed that over time she did it less and less and less, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's hard to be in the position of giving some of that feedback that you don't know how your mentee might take it, right? And but it's important to be very upfront and it's okay to talk about, I think, the challenges of being in this moment, and to say, look, I have something I want to share with you, and I want you to understand the place that it's coming from. It's because I really believe so much in you and I see these good things. So I'm going to say it, but then let's talk about what this means, and just make sure we clear the air, and that you don't misinterpret what I'm trying to get at, right? And so I think that's one approach, but it's hard. And then something else that you have me thinking about, Yesenia, is also thinking when you're in a mentoring relationship, it's also thinking about what are things that your mentee is teaching you, and how do you solicit feedback from them about, hey, like, how is this working for you? And what do you see as my strengths, being in the role that I am? And do you think there's areas where I might also kind of grow, or just think about, or maybe approach differently? And it's no matter who you are, whether you're students mentoring each other, whether you're a professor and student, whether you're colleagues, it's very vulnerable in that moment. But I think sometimes, when you know you can trust this person or know them well enough and you communicate clearly, it's very powerful to open yourself up in that way. And there's always something to learn and to do better at, and to be more thoughtful about, and how we approach the good work and meaningful work that we're trying to do.
Thank you. That was very valuable. I think from Doctora Burciaga, I love that approach where it's when approaching someone with that kind of tough love, it's coming from like a place of like cariño, and letting them know like, hey, I'm going to say this, which may not be easy, I guess, to take, but it's needed, and I'm doing it from a place of love because I believe in you. I know your potential. I know that this will help you grow. So I think that is something I often take in mind when having to like give tough love, because sometimes even we like try to not to do it, but then that's kind of like also a disservice to everyone, because we know like it's for the better. So or at least that's the intention, for it to be for the better. And I think what you said, Dr. Barrera, about I guess in when having mentorships, like it's a two-way, it's a relationship, right? Like you both learn from each other. And I think that that's where like a lot of the growth happens as well, when like you're not only um you're not only like going back to the vulnerageous, I love that word, vulnerageous, not only vulnerageous to give feedback, but also to take it and allow that to be kind of like a valid exchange.
Yeah, I did that not too long ago with my boss, which was really, and it was kind of spur of the moment. And I just said, okay, I've been in this role for 5 months now, and I wonder if you have any feedback about what you see, what you feel I'm doing well, or that areas where I might want to lean into a little more. And he was really generous with his positive feedback, and he's like, no, this is all great. So that felt really good to hear. It was a big relief. And then he said, well, what about me? He's like, what's feedback you have for me? And I was taken aback, because I wasn't expecting that. And it was like, I think you're doing good too. But it was just a nice moment. But when you ask that question, sometimes you feel like, okay, my heart's stopping because I don't know what they might say. But it was a good experience to do.
Yeah. Wow. That is definitely, I feel like even their step in like opening themselves up is also that is something I feel like I don't know if often experience, but yeah, like super vulnerageous, like to even to willingly put yourself in that position where you're like, all right, now tell me, like what I can in my areas of like improvement or growth, or what you have to say about what I can improve in. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that experience.
you're welcome. Yeah. I'm interested to hear, I don't know, just some other questions or thoughts, like what's on your minds as I don't know, we just have this conversation and think through, right, whether we're talking about organizing, whether we're talking about putting ourselves and our ideas out there into the world, well, different ways of being vulnerageous and really communicating clearly with others. I don't know, what are you kind of processing at the moment, or thinking about, and what questions or comments are coming up?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just wanted to mention how much I miss having a mentor, because that tough love is very much needed at times. And I had a mentor back in high school, and I still keep in touch with her, and I love talking to her. And a veces me pone en mi lugar, which is very much needed. Um, but I wish I had a mentor here in college because tough love is needed y más ahorita en estos tiempos.
Yeah, I love that you're here, right? So this is such a great, start or probably part of your whole process. And one of the things that you have me thinking about is I learned, I think as a faculty member through Carrie Ann Rockmore, you were talking about her earlier, Barrera, that we have multiple mentors for multiple things. So I have a writing mentor, I have a girlfriend mentor who just, can help pick me up and set me straight. And I have an organization mentor who I invited today to speak about organization. So when we think about that, like what part of your life are you looking for mentorship, and how, I mean, your being here is a great first start, right? Because there's the peer mentoring aspect, and then there's faculty, and Magdalena, Dr. Barrera, in your new position. Yeah, you just had me thinking about that.
Yeah, I just want to say, Yareli, partly in response to what you just shared, okay, I'm like always full of book recommendations, right? And maybe because I am not teaching right now, I'm like, I'm going to get it all out of my system and everyone's going to come away with like a big reading list. Okay, so too bad. Okay, a lot of good books out there. But I've been reading by Stacey Abrams, Lead from the Outside, How to Build Your Future and Make Real Change. And this is such a great book. And she has a chapter specifically called The Myth of Mentors. And it's about getting us away from the idea, right, that there's one person who's kind of senior to us or more experienced than we are, who will be able to be like a Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid and just like reveal the secrets of life and just tell us everything we need to know. That there doesn't exist that one person who can do all of that for us in the different areas that we need, but rather it's about cultivating a wide system of multiple kind of mentors who help us with different areas of our lives, right? And that's what Dr. Burciaga was just getting at. But she writes here, I don't have traditional mentors. Instead, I have curated support, training, and advice from an array of alliances, advisors, and friends, an a la carte approach designed for maximum input and flexibility for a range of circumstances that can defy the conventional wisdom of success. And she talks about how you don't just have to look upwards to mentors. It's not just your professors or to your managers or whatever. You look to the side, right? Who are peer mentors and who's at the same point in our journey that we can help guide each other together. There's mentors who are, quote unquote, below you, who maybe are not at your same point in their educational process, but have really great wisdom or ways of approaching things that you could learn from. It's like there's sponsors, people who know you and who can mention your name when good opportunities come up. There's advisors, people who give you very specific kinds of, here's how to navigate particular experiences. Like you need a bunch of different folks to give you the full range of support that you need. And right, I think a great goal that while you're here at SJSU is to really be thinking strategically and like, hey, what are areas where maybe I don't have someone who I can talk to about this part of my experience, and who could I reach out to, right? Whether that's starting at Centro and either talking to one of the faculty fellows or the student success leaders to say, hey, like, do you know anyone who's really into, talking about organization, right? And then they will be in a position to say, oh, you got to talk to Dr. Barrera or whoever, right? We got to use each other to like expand our social networks and know who's who and who's a good person to talk to, right? All right, that's one book recommendation. The other, I'm just going to keep going on a roll, is I think I've talked about this at the Student Leadership Retreat, More Than Ready by Cecilia Munoz. It's called Be Strong and Be You and Other Lessons for Women of Color on the Rise. And she was one of the few senior Latinas in the Obama administration working on immigration issues. And she writes about her journey to that point and like where she was a first-gen college student and what that experience was like, how she even started to find her career path, all the kinds of questions and doubts that she had, and how she worked her way up to being appointed by President Obama to lead a significant effort. And something I found very powerful that she talks about here, and this is why the title is called More Than Ready, it's about how oftentimes as women of color, we doubt ourselves and the knowledge that we have, the contributions that we can make, that it's hard sometimes to be the only, say, Latina at a table, right? And you might find this whether you're in class, whether you're starting your career, right? What if you're the only Latina in your organization? And it's hard to speak up in those spaces, but that her message in the book is that we are more than ready and that we do have knowledge, we have insights, we have amazing ideas that other people need to hear and that will push our initiatives forward. And it's just like a really, really beautiful book with tons of good advice and just a very real walkthrough about the highs and lows that she had in finding her way forward in her career. Really, really great book.
Wow, thank you. I love it. I love all. We should start a book club because I am so like intrigued in learning about all of the knowledge that is like I guess available through books, and like oftentimes we don't get to capture them, but when we have these like when we participate in these experiences, like I would have never heard of all these amazing books. And thank you so much, Dr. Burciaga, for linking them, because then that just makes it like direct to like purchase them. But thank you so much. And honestly, I had that shifted my perspective when we were talking about mentorships, like and like mentors. I apologize for the background, but uh like that there is really no one mentor for all, you know, like, and how we do find mentors in different aspects in our lives, and oftentimes when we have like an intention for a specific I guess mentorship experience, like it has we have to identify like where we want to, I guess, find mentorship in or through. uh and so yeah, like going back to like what to Yareli, like your question, like definitely I feel like even like simply like I guess being in these experiences, like you already met a mentor for planning and organization, and even like a mentor in like faculty through Dr. Burciaga and Dr. Barrera, honestly. And like I work at the centro, I know we know each other for some time, so definitely like a resource. Like peer mentors are great. Like mentors, you could say, or great resources. And so even I think it's participating in these events where you kind of get to like expand your knowledge. And I and that this may sound like confusing, but even like it can be applied to even like learning about books that are available. By simply like experiencing this, like you just expand your entire like, I guess, how do you explain it, like conocimiento, or like awareness of like what's available to you. So yeah, I think those were like big takeaways from what you just shared.
Thanks for sharing that, Yesenia. And I just want to share with you all 2 quotes from this book. It's so beautiful. So you get a preview of the kind of writing she does. But she says, pretty much by definition, because we are women of color, we are at most only a few generations removed from people who showed extraordinary resilience and strength and who endured what seemed unendurable. Our ancestors were survivors and strivers, generation after generation. That's how we got here. We are their legacy. And she says, our identity is the result of a lot of forces, but it's also uniquely our own. We bring all of it with us wherever we go. I think of this identity as a major source of strength and a foundation from which to grow. In the moments when I am most challenged, I'm not sure if I'm succeeding, and I don't know what kind of person people are seeing when they look at me. I am conscious of my ability to reach back and know who I am in some deep kind of way. I can see the person my family and friends see when I walk into a room. Whatever your circumstances, you are the product of a great chain of people, history, and forces that led to this moment and to you. It's worth taking time to reflect on it and build it into your arsenal of things to draw on when you need sources of courage. Okay, and if you don't have chills after hearing that, you need some coffee, wake up, like come to Jesus, something, because this is like so amazing. All right. And the other quote I want to share with you, she says, the most important element in how you present yourself, of course, is not your clothes, but your preparation, your self-confidence, and the sense that you know what you bring into the room is valuable. But it's also true that what you wear will make an impression. It will communicate something about you to the people in the room and perhaps even to yourself. So what do you want to communicate? And the more deliberate you are in conveying who you want to be in that room, the more people will see you and what you bring. And I just love that, because she's really talking about just having a strong sense of self, of our heritage, of our cultural strengths, that already we are adding so much to the conversations we join from that source of strength, right? And that we take it with us wherever we go, whoever we're talking to. How do we draw from that when we're feeling that self-doubt that creeps up? It's just to know, like, hey, right, I come from a strong line of people. We've been through a lot. And now people are going to listen to what I have to say. I'm gonna put myself out there and share my thoughts and ideas with the world. And if you're not ready to start the Rebulucion after hearing that, again, like, we need an intervention for you, because this is powerful stuff.
I love that. It just reminds me, here's a plug, actually, I'll put it in the chat. We are having a speaker series on Friday out of the College of Education, and the one that I helped put together is called Latinas Leading Schools. It'll be recorded, so if you can't make it, it'll be recorded, but along those lines exactly. So it's a collection of, it's from an edited book. So the editors of the book are there, and then we have contributors from the East Coast, from the West Coast, local, and part of our preparing for the session, it really came up that part of their success in leadership is because of the cultural foundations, right? The cariño, the community engaged, the way that we care for one another. And those are all lessons that they learned in their homes. And so it was really fascinating to, how do we prepare for this webinar and convey that at the same time? And so we decided to do, a plática, just show up as our full selves. And but it is really like to a T. I'm so glad that you gave those recommendations, Dr. Barrera, because they're brilliant, and I love the idea of a book club. Hey, you're muted, I think, Yesenia.
Oh dang! Thought I unmuted myself, but I'm looking at the date. It's on Friday, this Friday, 3:30 to 5 p.m. And Dr. Tara Yoso is also going to be joining.
Yes, that's what I was.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, talking about community cultural wealth. Oh, you were going to add about that?
Yes, I'm glad you reminded me though. But yeah, she's right after that.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, I just realized probably not in Ojo, huh? It wasn't in Ojo, that session?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Well,
yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I think, right, these things are tied, because it's like, okay, you can feel that strength from your ancestors and be very rooted in your identity. That's one source of strength. But it's, again, remember what in the book she said about, Cecilia Munoz suggested something about, it's going into rooms feeling prepared and like, okay, like, yeah, I've got myself together. I know what I want to say or what I'm going to contribute, or that I got my assignments done. I'm ready for class discussion, whatever. And that's where the calendaring comes back in. So like, I'm going to bring it full circle, right? And that's why just the more we get ourselves organized, the more we're thinking very strategically about, how am I spending my time and energy? Am I getting the things done that are really important to me, right? And it's not that particular, not every assignment that you're going to have in college is going to be like deeply meaningful and you care about it, right? That's reality. But when you have a vision for your long-term goal, where I want to be in my career one day, the kind of work I want to do for my community and alongside my community, the way I want to represent my family in who I am professionally down the road, when you keep in mind those long-term goals, that's what gives you the focus to like, okay, I'm not super into this assignment, but I'm going to do it because it's going to put me one step closer to that amazing future that I'm really excited about. And then that's how we give ourselves the animo to like keep plugging away when the things are feeling very hard. It's like, keep your eye on the long term, be taking care of yourself, build in those breaks, but organize your time carefully. And it's between the organization and the strong sense of identity that you're going to walk into different situations feeling very grounded and prepared to contribute something meaningful there.
Beautiful. Love it. And you all just thought you were coming to talk about planners.
Planners are deep.
That's how we draw you in.
I'm so glad I joined. I love the last part you mentioned. Strong sense of identity, very much needed cuando no tienes motivación, like your roots, very important.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad I joined because I've been feeling super overwhelmed with life and school. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very, very powerful. And just know none of us is ever alone. We got each other on this journey. And, you know, it's meaningful to just show up to things like this, to speak from the heart, to just be open to like, okay, like, what can I learn here? I'm looking for inspiration, and just know that if you got any of that here, that you also give it, you know, like, I really miss being in the classroom with students, and being here with all of you is really meaningful to me, and really it keeps me centered on, this is why I am here in higher ed. My purpose is for us to contribute to having a strong Latinx community on our campus, because you all are young people, so amazing, are going to do so much good for the world. And if I could play a small role in that, in your success, keeping you at it and moving forward, then that is everything to me.
Yeah, amen to that.
Mhm.
Love it.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that, Yareli, and for the support, Dr. Barrera and Dr. Burciaga. Just really quickly, I loved how you though connected the planning to like the purpose and just the overall journey, because I feel like it all does like tie back into like, well, with the feeling prepared with planning, because it is a very grounding purpose where you're kind of even able to reflect and like oversee the journey, because when you have it recorded, you can go back and see, you know, the progress and
Totally.
how it's truly being like, I guess, intentional with how you want to prepare in any aspect. So
Yes.
point that
Yeah.
out.
Yesenia, thanks for saying that. And there's some planners like the Passion Planner that has a space every week to add your highlights or what went well this week. And like now I use one of my boxes to do that. Like before I even engage in next week's planning, I write down what are things that went really well. What do I feel good about? Even if it's like, hey, I had a good conversation with my friend. I connected with my homegirl, right? Like that's something good that week. And it's worth recording that. But one last thing I'll say is just have the sense of identity is an important start, but we don't want to just show up to spaces and be like, yeah, I'm Latinx, I come from strong people, whatever, but then not be organized and have people be like, oh boy, here she goes, right? Like you got to have your act together, right? You need a planner, a calendaring system, etc.
Yeah, for sure. That's when I feel the most prepared, to just show up and be the badasses that we all are. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Barrera, for coming and just exceeding expectations around, like, I was all excited about the organization, and here we got all of this like affirming approaches to living our best life. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming. I'm gonna stop recording, but thank you for joining the Rebelucion.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Have a good day. Thank you.